Anesthesiologists of Reddit. What was something you won't forget hearing from someone that was under? My husband was put under to get his wisdom teeth out. He was a little anxious and also is just kind of anal. He's an engineer. So he read his pre-op instructions front to back like a dozen times. One of the things it said was and quote, "You may experience profound disorientation upon awakening." And quote. As he woke up, he opened one eye and looked around the room, then said extremely huffily and quote, "I wouldn't call this profound," and quote. Then he started crying. I was giving a young female patient sedation for a routine colonoscopy, and as I pushed the propofol, sleepy medicine, it started to hit her. She sat straight up and yelled to everyone in the procedure room, "I shaved my asshole for you," and she flopped down on her pillow and she was asleep. I was coming out of the fog of anesthesia from a colonoscopy. Apparently I didn't recognize my wife and refused her affections, telling her she was pretty, but I was married. Got big brownie points for that. My dad asked my mom to pick up his butt cheek so he could fart and it was too heavy. Anesthesiologist here. For better or for worse, I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan, so I wear a scrub cap with the Packers name, colors on it. I was doing a pre-op evaluation on a kid who was a big New Orleans Saints fan, and when I walked into the room, his first words to me were, "Packers suck." I laughed and continued to prepare him and his family for his redo open heart surgery procedure. Fast forward to surgery a couple days later, and his mom had come back to the OR as he was going to sleep. Given the fact this was a 3 or 4 time redo sternotomy, going into the chest again, he had a higher risk of major complications from the surgery. I started to push some meds to have him go to sleep while his mom was holding his hand, and as he drifted off, he said, "Wait, I have to tell my mom something." She got emotional saying how much she loved him, and we were all waiting to hear what he had to say so urgently. I paused giving him the medication, but he was already well on his way to being under, and as he drifted off to sleep, he said, "Packers suck. Kid did great, hope he is doing well smiley face. Edit. RIP inbox, thank you for all the awards. The kid did great, and hopefully will not need any more surgery for 20+ years, cheers everyone." My husband had his ACL and meniscus repaired. When they brought him back into the room, he stared at me through half-closed eyes until the nurses left and then said, and quote, "I love you. I'm glad you're here," and quote, I melted. Then he conked back out for about half an hour and woke up with a big gasp. I thought he was in pain. That's how loud it was, and went, and quote, "Burger King Burgie Ear RRRRR." And quote. I said, and quote, "You want a Burger King burger?" And quote. He said and quote, "I do," and quote. So I had to get him a Burger King burger for dinner. He doesn't remember anything until he was back home several hours later with Burger King sitting in front of him. Lol. Nurse here, was 22F had a teen boy come out of anesthesia who looked at me and said, "Hey, you're the girl from last night." I had to reassure everyone that that wasn't me. I had a surgery to remove bone spurs from my big toes in early February of 2005. I woke up while the doctor was grinding the bone down and asked if he thought Donovan McNabb could lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl win. He nodded at the anesthesiologist and I don't remember anything after that. As an Eagles fan, he wasn't wrong to put you back under. As I put someone out for a colonoscopy one time, the patient said, "You're cute. Are you gonna see my butt?" Then she was out. Edit for those of you asking. Yes, for colonoscopies we typically use deep sedation. This is in the US. 99.9% of the time this means propofol, the Michael Jackson drug. Most of us will give some lidocaine through your IV first. This helps prevent the burning sensation in your IV that propofol can sometimes give, and follow it right up with propofol to knock you out. Almost never need analgesics like fentanyl. I gave a patient an IV dose of ketamine for a pain procedure. He proceeded to tell the room that everyone had turned into cartoon characters and then he announced he was melting into a wall of butter. Still my finest achievement as a physician. My wife was all doped up during her C-section and asked the anesthesiologist, and quote, "Did they cut me open yet?" And quote. He calmly told her they did. To which she replied, and quote, "Ah shit," and quote, with a huge grin on her face. The doctor and I lost it. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and stories. I'm scrolling through everything laughing my ass off. Y'all are the best. I had a C-section and wouldn't shut up about how I felt like I was floating in the ocean. I offered the anesthesiologist a hit of the good shit, and completely forgot I was getting a baby pulled out of me. They brought my son over to show me and I told the nurse it was a cute baby, then asked if it was Maria's. I didn't know any pregnant Marias at that moment. They brought my firstborn over to show me and I said en quote, "He's loud and he doesn't purr like my kitty does. En quote, he's 20 now. He's still loud. He still does not purr." I'm sure the anesthesiologist that did my son's dental surgery will never forget him. Specifically, because he came out after the fact clearly trying very hard not to laugh to tell my wife about it. Kiddo was just chatting away while he was getting ready. Now my son is autistic and at the time had a very distinct way of speaking and pattern of emphasis along with a lisp. I literally cannot translate how he sounded talking into text. Edit. Thanks, you, Schmobzola, for giving me a good idea of actually how to describe this. Imagine you had a soundboard of Butters from South Park that had all these words on it from vastly different conversations and strung them together into the sentences below and you'll have a pretty decent idea of it. He sounds a bit different than my son, but it's about as close as I can get. Anyway, just as they're getting ready to put him under he goes. End quote. You're gonna need some hardcore nighttime medicine cuz I have ADHD and end quote. Out, practically snoring even. They get to work, finish up and pull the mask off him. The literal second the mask was off his nose he bolts upright and finishes his sentence from however long earlier. End quote. That stuff don't work good on me. End quote. Windows XP reboot sound. My daughter had dental surgery as well, and I imagine the nurses remember her well. All 25 pounds of my 3-year-old woke up pissed and ready for a fistfight. She screamed and yelled so loudly that I could hear her from the waiting room. They pulled us back early, in the hope she would calm down when I got there. But nope, she screamed just as loudly at me. She also refused to put her clothes back on, and at one point while I was trying to wrestle her into her shorts, shoved me and whipped them back off. I wrapped her in a hospital blanket, carried her, kicking and screaming, to the car and strapped her in naked, where she promptly fell straight to sleep. Woke up when we got home and was her sweet as pie little self again. As far as I can tell she remembered none of it. It was wild. One of my patients coming out of sedation embarrassed her husband who was in the room by saying that during their sex he likes to have Vicks rubbed on his backside. Thank goodness I'm not the only one who wants open air passages while I get my fuck on. Little known fact that used to be listed as an intended use on the box. Kind of on topic. When my mom woke up after having a stroke, the doctor asked if she recognized the people in the room. She got my sister's name right, called me my brother's name, and smiled real big at my stepdad and called him asshole. One guy said, before falling asleep, "Whoa. That feels like a dime bag." I ask a patient after surgery how he feels. He opens his eyes, stares me dead on and says, "With my fingers." Then he goes right back to sleep. Apparently when I was going under I told the anesthesiologist, "Don't mess this up, I know where you work." My husband had knee surgery. After he woke up he half yelled half whispered APPPPPPPP Lee JUIIIIICE, so the nurse gave him apple juice. Several small cups full. He grinned like a toddler and said apple juice and immediately flopped back and went back to sleep for all of 10 minutes until he woke back up gasping that he couldn't breathe. His mom, who I had met maybe 1 or 2 times at this point, went up to the foot of his bed to grab a nurse in the doorway and he bolted upright. That man projectile vomited pure apple juice directly into her face, body, the wall, the door, hallway. I have never seen anything like it in my entire life. His mom stood there soaked in juice vomit and he just rubbed his eyes and said en quote, "Ah, I feel better," en quote. Bam. Back to sleep for another 2 hours lol. I was told after surgery I said I love dogs and I want to eat the Taliban. At least you said it correctly. A little girl was going under and she was holding her mother's hand. She reached out for my hand with her other and as she was going out she joined mine with her mother's and said, en quote, "You would be a nice daddy," en quote. I probably went beetroot red as I blushed. I woke up singing the Magic School Bus theme song while someone 3 beds away was screaming in agony. In my defense, your singing was really bad. Not the anesthesiologist, but as a surgery tech working next to them. Patient, woozily. Doc, will I still be able to integrate after this? Gas passer. Integrate? Like what? Patient. Like the sum of f, x, from a to b when. Gas passer. Pushes more milk of amnesia. My husband woke up from anesthesia after a colonoscopy just after the doctor walked in. He didn't see the doctor and told me, "No blowjob for you," then fell back asleep and ripped a big fart. The doctor looked at me and busted out laughing. He said not to be embarrassed. People say the weirdest things, but this one he'd remember. Was under anesthesia for a breast reduction. As I was coming out, my nurse was talking to me and apparently I started saying, "OMG, it's an angel and she looks like Barbie." I kept yelling for Barbie angel and possibly kept trying to hug her and pet her hair. I cried for her on the way home. She called to check on me later that night and referred to herself as Nurse Barbie Angel. She was the sweetest. My aunt, who notoriously despises fast food, old Mexican lady whose food is as good as it gets, woke up and looked at my uncle and said, "Are you the sexy man that's gonna take me to McDonald's?" If you knew her, you would know that she would never say that. She has never lived it down. I was under general anesthesia to get my gallbladder removed. As I was being wheeled back through the double doors, there was a giant TV screen that listed the surgeries going on. I was way too loopy to actually read it, but I swear I saw elbow-ectomy, and started hysterically laughing over the idea of removing an elbow and being left with a floppy arm. Apparently what I actually said was, "Elbow jaloo," and then passed out. Am an anesthetist. Woke up a 70-year-old PT who got a penile prosthesis implant for erectile dysfunction. First thing out of his mouth in his post-surgery stupor was to request a private room and find out when he could and quat. Take this baby out for a test drive and quat. He was a happily married jokester.